Okay, I'll just give you a kind of a brief history of the boat and the whole journey and what happened along the way. The boat was arrested in Dundalk and we bought it in auction on the 30th of March. Now, thanks to the likes of Insurance Shipping, we actually turned that boat around in record time. We actually had it with all certified and everything ready to go in 6 weeks. We headed out of Dundalk. We had one other minor repair job to do that we pulled into Green Ore, and that took 2 days. From there then we continued on. We went down to Malta. Malta is where we stopped yesterday week, and this is where with all the passengers we refueled water and food, and that's where basically the journey for most of the passengers began. We took off then Sunday night about midnight. Around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning we started getting phone calls asking for comments on the situation on the Myanmar. We had absolutely no idea what happened. It only started coming through then that there was what I would call a major disaster on the Myanmar. So everybody on board sat down and we actually had a meeting on Monday to find out what were we going to do. At that stage, every last person on board that boat was more determined than ever to continue on, especially in what has happened. We just wanted to go, bring this aid to Gaza and show the people of Gaza that we are determined to get this aid to you. We kept going. We had a lot of media coverage. We had a lot of conflicting media saying that we were in constant contact with the Israeli government. We had actually no contact whatsoever with the Israeli government up until a couple hours before we were boarded. The night before we were boarded, we could see 2 ships shadowing us the whole time. Then approximately around 5:30 in the morning, one of them came in close within around 6 kilometre range, and that was the jamming boat. They have a jamming system which cuts basically all communications, cut off all satellite phones, but also cuts out your navigation equipment. So at that stage we're back to doing it by chart and compass again. Then at that stage the Israeli Navy got in contact with us and they started trying to get us to go to Ashdod. We said we cannot do that. This mission wasn't just bringing aid to Gaza, it was also to break the blockade of Gaza. If we had brought the aid in and sent it across, the aid would have got in, yes, that fraction of aid would have got in, but that would be it. So no more aid would have ever got back into Gaza again. We have to show that we have to be able to get a continuous line of aid into Gaza. You're talking about 18 months ago since the war, and not one bag of cement has gone in through the Israeli crossings. 5 billion has been donated by our pledge by governments from around the world, and not one penny has been spent inside Gaza. For me, this is an absolute disgrace from the international community, and it's about time that they stood up and put pressure on Israel to lift the blockade, because it is, like Maid said, it is slow genocide. People are actually dying from the lack of normal humanitarian aid getting in. The storage system treatment plant in there hasn't worked in 3 years. You're looking at 1.5 million people's raw storage going into the sea. If the fishermen, the only source of food that they have is fish. If they go out past 2 miles, they're shot. So they actually have to fish inside 2 miles of their shoreline. It's the most heavily polluted area in the Mediterranean. They bring the food back, they feed it to their kids. The kids get stomach upsets. They go to the hospital, there's not enough medical aid there for these people. So the children die of stomach upsets, stomach complaints, and it's put down as natural causes. This is perfectly acceptable to the Israelis because these people are dying of natural causes. They are not killing the people, they're dying naturally. But the numbers are increasing continuously. The same with premature births, and because of depleted uranium, deformities are on the increase, everything. And this is all happening under the eyes of the international community, and nobody is saying a word. this is why we felt that we were so determined to highlight this by going by ship and not sending them in through Ashdod and keeping quiet and letting this bit of aid in. So we were determined to keep going. The Israelis said that they were going to come on board and arrest us. We kept talking to them, and I told them exactly where everybody would be on board, because my main concern is the safety of everybody on board that ship, bringing them from A to B and back again safely. So I got everybody to stand midships. I was told to stay in the wheelhouse by myself. So I was in the wheelhouse. You had 4 Zodiacs coming in each side, approximately 1 platoon of soldiers coming on, each one carrying at least 3 weapons, 4 stun grenades and tasers. That's each soldier coming on board is carrying that. So you're looking at a massive amount of artillery coming on, or weaponry coming on board for a boat that actually had no weapons on board and had been searched by the Customs and Excise, Senator Mark Deary from the Green Party, Foreign Affairs spokesperson from the Green Party, and Ken Fleming from the IPSC Seafarers Union. All 3 independent people searched that boat before it left Dundalk, and the security seals put on all the hatch covers to make sure that nothing untoward was on that boat. We tried to explain that. We called for the UN to come and inspect the boat in international waters. We didn't get a response from the UN, but we still continued on our mission. We were approximately 35 miles out from Gaza. At that stage, we realized if we go much further, we're going to be going into Israeli waters. So we actually stopped. We turned off our engines and we stayed afloat there. When the Israelis seen this, then at that stage they said, okay, look, we've given you your chance, you didn't turn around. I tried to explain that we've turned off our engines, this didn't make any difference. So at that stage the Israelis said they were going to come on board. Just before they were coming on board, I tried to explain we were in international waters, we haven't violated any Israeli law, we haven't violated Israeli waters, or we haven't violated any maritime laws. At that stage, when I said that, they stopped for a while. They waited for about maybe a half an hour. I said they were in consultation with their own government to find out what the situation was. So we were sitting on board at that stage for about a half an hour. Then eventually I got a call saying, okay, Derek, get everybody to midships, we're coming on board. I still proclaimed that we were in international waters and that this was an illegal act. He says, look, they're coming regardless, get the people into the... So for my own safety and for everybody else's safety, I put them midships. I was told to stay on the bridge. They came on board. As soon as they touched the boat, at that stage then I set off the distress signals on the BSS radio, the VHF radio and the EPIRB. This sends out a signal, even though they were jamming the systems, you cannot jam these. So this sent out a signal, a distress signal all over to give our exact coordinates. So the Israelis now know that they cannot claim that we weren't in international waters. Then they came on board. That was about the only time I was feeling anyway kind of apprehensive, because from previous phone calls I've been told that basically the captain of the Myanmar was basically executed. It was just one clean shot to the head and that was it. And I'm standing on the wheelhouse by myself. So when they came on board, you had at least 6 rounds, 6 guns pointing at me. So they finally made their way up to the wheelhouse, told me to get down, face down on the floor, put my hands behind my head, done that. Then they took me out, they handcuffed me behind my back, put me kneeling at the back of the boat by myself for approximately 3/4 of an hour, facing the wall. Every time you tried to turn, they just shout at you to keep facing the wall. Done that, and then eventually they came along, cut the cable ties off, put me with the rest of the crew. We travelled into Ashdod, got to Ashdod, we were processed. One of the first things, when we were being processed, they actually asked us to sign the form to say that we entered Israel illegally. Now, I just kind of looked at her and says, well, I did come to Israel, I don't know if you call it illegally. I says, the point is going to my face and brought me here. And I says I was refusing to sign it. So I think they just basically dropped in charges straight away because they knew they were bogus charges. We stayed in prison then for 2 days. and they were deported back here, and that's where we are now. So that's basically the gist of the story. I'll pass you over to Denison.